Hi, I'm Divya and thanks for joining me today. I have a fun project and I hope you guys enjoy. Today I'm working on an MDF tray and set of 6 coasters. The black tissue is for the tray and the lemon print is for the coasters. I'm starting off with a base coat of gesso. I'm using a sponge dabber for this. It just keeps my hands clean. You could just use a piece of a hardware sponge. I wanted to show you how to work with a black tissue. I get this question a lot. I work with it, I treat it just like I would treat any other color napkin. There's nothing different about working with a black or a dark color tissue. I use the same base coat, I use the same colors, the same kind of blendings, same varnish and everything. So I just wanted to show you how it's as simple as working with any other kind of tissue. For the corners and edges, I couldn't reach with the sponge, so I'm taking a brush and I'm just applying gesso. I'm dabbing it instead of using the brush how you traditionally use a brush. I don't want those strokes to appear. I want to mimic the texture that the sponge created. So dabbing with the brush helps. Once I've gessoed the entire surface, I'm going to stick the napkin. If you've seen my previous videos, you've seen that I highly recommend tearing the napkin on all sides, hand torn napkins instead of using a pair of scissors. It just blends very easily into the paint. So make sure that you're tearing the napkin and not cutting it. The napkin generally will have 2 or 3 ply, so I'll separate that as well. I'm using gel medium. I'm using acrylic gel medium to glue it down. You'll see that I'm using very little glue and working in long columns. Once I have glue on the underside, I'm just pressing the napkin down firmly. You can use your finger for this. It's summer here and it's very hot, and my hands are extra sweaty, so I'm just using the brush to press it down. If I use my finger, the napkin might tear. So very little glue goes at the bottom, and this helps with achieving a no wrinkle look, almost no wrinkle look. This napkin luckily didn't have any. So with this method, 99% of the time I do get a clean, flawless finish, but it's still handmade at the end of the day, so I might end up with a little bit of fine wrinkles. Once it's all glued down, I'm going to use the same glue, apply a layer on the top. You can also skip this step right now, sealing from the top, and maybe seal seal it in the end, in the very end, but I like to seal it right away, just to make sure while I am painting, the napkin doesn't lift, you know. So this works best for me. Dry time for this maybe is say 20 to 30 minutes, just to be safe. Once that's nice and dry, I'm going to use some acrylic black, again with sponge dabber, and I'm just going to dab on the edges on the gessoed tray, the gessoed part. If you notice, you'll see that I'm also going over the napkin a little bit. That gives you the best blending results. The napkin is not 100% black. The black paint is extremely stark, so I've added a little bit of gray just to kind of mellow it down a little bit. I didn't want a 100% black finish, so you'll see me dab in a little bit of gray here and there. The idea is to achieve a chalkboard finish, and unless the chalkboard is brand new, you won't have it look 100% black. I want it to look like it's chalkboard that's used well, with a lot of distress. So I'm making sure that I add a lot of gray and dab it while I'm applying the black, so the black kind of tones down a bit. Make sure that you paint over the tissue a little bit. Don't just start blending where the napkin has ended. Come over the napkin a little bit. I hope you're able to see me do that. So just like the white, like the gesso, I can't reach the edges with the sponge. So you'll see me go. You'll see that I'm going back with a brush, and the same thing, I will not use it traditionally for strokes that look very different than what we've already done. So I'll continue dabbing. A lot of you also ask me this question. You want to use, if the tissue or the paper that you're using is black, you want to know why we're not using a black base coat. The thing is, the tissue, once it comes in contact with glue, becomes extremely translucent, and if your base is black, the tissue picks up that color, and it completely dulls down your entire tissue, if not lose a lot of details. Keeping the base coat white will ensure that you have you'll ensure that the napkin remains its true color, so it'll look exactly how it's looking before you stuck, if that's making sense. Maybe you can experiment. You could try base coat of 2 or 3 different colors, say black, white, and maybe a brown or something, and see how the napkin reacts to that. I have shared all the links to all the art supplies I've used today in the description box below. Do check it out. Sometimes there are some supplies that I have bought either in my travels or from a local store, so I might not be able to leave you the link of that exact product, but I will leave a link to something similar. I'm painting all the sides and the bottom black with a little bit of grey here and there. At the bottom, I don't really mind I don't really mind if it's looking different. So you'll see me just brush through quickly with watered down paint. You can continue using the dabber or the brush in that dabbing motion, so you get the same texture at the bottom as well, if you're particular. Once I'm happy with the black, I'm adding a little bit of white acrylic paint to distress the tray. I'll add it on the edges and a little bit on the in the middle as well. I don't want it to look like pure white. I want it to look like a blackboard has some white chalk text on it, and if you wipe it down, you do have some white residue left, maybe a very light white residue left. That's the look I'm going for. So you'll see me apply white. So you'll see me apply the white paint, but use my fingers to kind of pick it up a little, wipe it off. So there is a hint of white, but it's not too much in your face. I hope that makes sense. I seem to have forgotten to paint the bottom of the tray completely. I'll be doing that off camera. The way to achieve this dry brushed look is very simply have a completely dry brush and very little paint. You want just a hint of white on the brush, not too much. Too much, you won't be able to wipe it off and it'll look too like a very stark patch, and we don't want that. Once I'm happy with the sides, I am adding a little bit of white on the surface, on the main surface as well. And like I said, I will apply some white and then in some areas go back with a little bit of black. Also, you'll see that I'll go over the white with a little bit of black in some areas. Sometimes I like to go back and forth a couple of times to achieve the exact look I'm going for. Once I'm happy, I'm just going to use some yellow, the same shade as the lemons on the print on the napkin, and I'm going to add some splatters. I'll just water down the paint and tap my brush over the project, over the tray. So the colors that are on the napkin were white, black and yellow. We have used white and black. We've painted the tray black and then we did a little bit of white highlights. The yellow I felt was looking a little out of place, which is why I wanted to kind of introduce it to the rest of the tray as well, which is why I've added the splatters. I will hide some of these splatters. I thought they were a little too much. I wanted some of them to kind of fade off as well, not to look, I didn't want them all to look so bright. So you'll see me go back with a little bit of black and just, you know, cover up some of those splatters. All of this is optional, you don't really have to do this. Alright, I'm happy. This is what the tray is looking like. These are MDF coasters. I'm repeating the steps. I will gesso the coasters, I will gesso the top and the sides. Once they're gessoed, you'll see me cut them into smaller pieces and glue them down using gel medium. The reason I'm using a pair of scissors here is because the napkin will be bigger than my surface and I will be sanding off those extras. All the edges are falling over the surface, so it doesn't really matter if it's cut or hand torn. So same exact process, a little bit of glue. I work in long columns for better results. I'm more in control if I'm working in longer, straighter columns. I glue them all down and they're all done, I'm using a fine sandpaper and I'll sand off the extra bits of the napkin. So the napkins need to be sealed from the top as well. I'm using Mod Podge. I generally use gel medium, but I wanted to show you that you could use Mod Podge as well. I have previously used Mod Podge for many years for this step, but I've realized that it gives me a lot of wrinkles. So I've switched to using gel medium for both the gluing down part and the varnish, the top varnish. Mod Podge does get a little thick and clumpy in summers, so I add a little bit of water. I don't mix it into the Mod Podge. I just have some on my in my cup, just beside the Mod Podge, just so that I can wet my brush. I feel that the wet brush moves the Mod Podge easily. Once the Mod Podge is dry, after one coat of Mod Podge, I will be using about 2 coats of wood varnish. I'll explain why I use this when I come to that. I have shared all the links to all the art supplies I've used today in the description box below. Do check it out. Sometimes there are some supplies that I have bought either in my travels or from a local store, so I might not be able to leave you the link of that exact product, but I will leave a link to something similar. Varnish is done. I will let them dry for a bit. At this point they're still sticky to each other, so make sure you don't stack them up. Leave them to dry all flat, laid out all flat. You can paint the bottom, but what I'll be doing is I'm using a piece of cork sheet for the underside of the coasters. They'll just it'll look nice. They don't slip on a sleek surface. They just have a better grip on the table, and I really like coasters with the cork backing. I will cut the cork sheet slightly bigger than the coaster. I'm using a strong adhesive to glue this down. Once they're nicely fixed, I will cut off the extras. I'm using a cork sheet from Crafts Lane. I'll leave a link to that as well. In my opinion, the cork sheet is pretty flexible, and it's nicely finished, but I did have a problem with the edges. When I cut into the sheet, it started fraying like fabric, if you know what I mean. It started what's the word I'm looking for? The sheet just was falling apart. There's just this powdered bits falling off. So I wouldn't recommend this sheet. I've tried another brand of cork sheets from Itsy Bitsy, and those are fantastic. They're very flexible. They're slightly thicker than this, but they're really flexible and nice. And you don't have that problem when you cut through them. So if you're doing this, then I would recommend you try the other brand. I will leave a link to that also in the description box below. Okay, we're done. This is what they look like, and they go really well with the tray as well. So just to finish them up, I'm using a wood varnish on top of the coasters and the tray. This particular brand of varnish is water-based and needs to be diluted with a little bit of water and can be applied with a brush. And because the tray and coasters will come in contact with water frequently, I will apply 2 layers of this varnish just to be sure. For something that will go on the wall or any of the project that won't come in contact with a lot of water or wear and tear, just 1 layer of varnish is more than enough. The reason I'm applying a second varnish. The reason I haven't just left it like this is because gel medium or Mod Podge, the gel medium which I've used on the tray and the Mod Podge that I used on the coasters are archival, so they will make sure that the napkin remains that color, and they are fade and water resistant, but they're not heat resistant. So let's say I put a hot cup of coffee either on the coasters or the tray, it will leave a ring, or it'll even stick. If I stack up these coasters or let's say put them on the tray, they will stick to each other as well. So these varnish surfaces will react with heat and they get very tacky. Leaving them as a final coat is not really advisable. I varnish all the coasters. I'm varnishing the tray, all sides of the tray as well. I'm making sure to varnish the front, the side, the handles, and the back. Again, if this was going up on the wall, you could just leave it with Mod Podge as the final layer of varnish. It wouldn't matter, but anything else that you think will stick to each other, anything that will come in contact with heat, you will have to use a varnish that is heat resistant. This particular varnish is heat, dust, water resistant, so it works very well. I had this cute coaster stand that I thought will go very well with the set. So it's again made of the same MDF. I will repeat the same steps. I'm going to paint it black. I will add some white distress, and then because there is no paper, I'm going to skip either using the gel medium or Mod Podge. I'm directly going to use the wood varnish on this painted surface. This particular varnish that I'm using does not yellow or change the color of paint. But if you don't have this varnish at home, if you have had experiences where the varnish changes the color of your surface, you might want to apply Mod Podge first and then maybe a different kind of varnish. And like I said, the edges didn't cut very well. They were just fraying, if that's the closest word I can think of to what was happening here. So so I needed to go in with a little bit of sandpaper and kind of minimize the damage. I have managed to use a little bit of glue and kind of keep it intact. The damage was really small, just in the corners. But like I said, I highly recommend you using the other brand of cork sheets. I love adding the name of my brand on my projects. I got this custom-made rubber stamp of my brand from this US website called rubberstamps.com. One of my friends was traveling to India a couple of years ago, and I got them. I placed the order online and I got it shipped to her place, and she brought it for me. I don't know if they offer shipping to India, but you can check it out. You can definitely write to them. I got a couple of logo stamps, and I got another stamp that says handmade by Divya Talap, and I really like using that as well. You should check it out. I will leave the link in the description box. I'm using a black permanent archival ink for this. I'd like to let my projects dry for a couple of days before I start using them. They will feel dry to touch immediately. This varnish especially dries instantly, so it will feel dry in just 5 minutes. But I'd like to leave them out to dry a little longer. Give it a couple of more days just to be sure. And that's about it. This is what the final product was looking like. The trays, the coasters, and the stand. They look lovely individually, and they look really cute together as well as a set. I really hope you were able to learn and pick up a few new tricks and tips from this video. Please let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye bye.